Many managers, especially first-time managers, find that giving tough feedback is the hardest thing to do. In this video, I'm going to continue to share how you can learn to do that by teaching you the fourth step that's shared in Kim Scott's book, Radical Candor. Hey everyone, my name is Chris and I'm a leadership coach. And I make content specifically for first-time managers so they can crush it in their new roles without crushing themselves and their teams. In my last videos, I taught the first 3 steps in learning how to give tough feedback. The first step was about soliciting feedback, the second step was about giving praise, and the third step was about giving kind and clear criticism. If you want to go back and watch those videos, there's a link to them in the comments. Once you've learned how to do all these 3 steps, the fourth and final step to learning how to give tough feedback is to balance your praise and criticism. And here are 3 tips on how you can do that more effectively. Tip number 1, give specific praise and criticism. If you're going to be specific in your criticism, then make sure to be specific in your praise. A mistake is to give short and general praise and long and specific criticism. No offense, but if you do this, it makes you look like unfavorable. It makes it seem that the criticism is more important than the praise. In my career, I had a manager that did this to me, and let me tell you, it felt horrible. I felt anxious if everything wasn't perfect because this person's focus would be on the things that were wrong while the other things that I did right would be ignored. No matter how hard I tried, I felt that whatever I did wasn't good enough. And as a result, over time, I started to put in less effort. Needless to say, the manager and the company did not get the best from me. If you're going to spend the time making sure that you have your facts right before you give criticism, make sure that you spend an equal amount of time making sure that your facts are right before you give praise. Tip number 2, stop it with the feedback sandwich. You've probably heard of something called the feedback sandwich. You know, the one where you begin with a compliment, which is like the bread. Then you follow it up with criticism, which represents the meat and the cheese. Then you add another compliment on top, which is the bread. While I love sandwiches, I personally hate the feedback sandwich because it's predictable and people can see right through it. It may work for employees who are less experienced, but the more experienced employees, they've already heard it so many times that they already know what's coming. And when you've heard it over and over throughout your career, it makes me doubt whether the praise received was genuine or whether it was said to soften the blow of the criticism. So instead of the feedback sandwich, I offer another alternative, which is my tip number 3, and I call it the feedback charcuterie board. Now, a charcuterie board is the same ingredients as a sandwich, but it's displayed differently. Here's what I like about the charcuterie board instead of the sandwich. When giving criticism, which is represented by the meat and the cheese, notice that it's just there on the charcuterie board. Sometimes we struggle with giving criticism because we're nervous it may hurt people's feelings. Instead, just say it. Just be like the meat and the cheese, like it's just there. When giving praise, which is represented by the bread, notice that it's well thought out. You know, on a charcuterie board, they don't just take, sliced bread that's in a bag and put it on the board. They may get a sliced baguette or artisanal crackers. They think about the type of bread that they're going to put on the board. In the same way, when you're giving your praise, make sure it's just as well thought out. The lesson here is to be aware of how praise can go wrong and be thoughtful on how to say it. Another reason why I like the charcuterie metaphor is because a charcuterie, it's often displayed on a nice piece of wood, which to me represents the foundation. When it comes to giving feedback, whether that's positive or negative, the foundation that you must have is care for the person. Isn't it true that we tend to listen more to the person we know who has our best interests in mind, who actually cares about us? Personally, if I know that the person doesn't really care about me, I'm not necessarily going to listen to their feedback. Whereas if I know the person does care about me, I'm going to take their feedback to heart. So in this charcuterie metaphor, the board itself represents the foundation, which is care. The bread represents the positive feedback, which is praise. And the meat and cheese represent the criticism. And notice that they're all nicely placed on that board. All of this talk about food is making me hungry. So the last step in building the skills of giving feedback is to balance praise and criticism. And the 3 tips are to give specific praise and criticism, to stop it with the feedback sandwich, and to start thinking about a feedback charcuterie. Thank you for watching this video, as well as my other videos I put together on giving tough feedback. If you enjoyed this series, let me know by giving this video a like and leaving a comment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.